What's good, y'all? This is Fred Johnson the fourth, Mr. I'm gonna graduate, your favorite college success coach, and I have another podcast interview for y'all. I'm happy. I'm excited to interview Ethan Lipsey today. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
Ethan Lipsey from LSU-Alexandria, their Office of First Year Experience. He's the director of that office, and y'all, we're getting ready to learn a lot. Ethan, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good, Fred. Thank you so much for having me on.
Perfect. Awesome. For those of you where this could be your first time viewing, welcome to the College Access and Persistence podcast, where I bring on leaders from the higher education and secondary education realms and just pick their brain about all the great things they're doing. Of course, this is a space where we want to foster a community of collaboration. I find so often your leaders in secondary ed are doing their thing, your leaders in higher ed are doing their thing, and we want to talk about how we can work better together, but also get a deeper dive into the individual worlds as well. So again, I'm really excited to talk to Ethan. So Ethan, tell us, because everybody knows about LSU, the flagship school. Talk to us about LSU-A. Talk about what's different about y'all campus. What's different about the vibe of LSU-A?
Yeah, so LSU-A exists in the greater LSU system, right? So we're the Alexandria campus, but we function semi-autonomously, I guess. We are Louisiana's only exclusively undergraduate institution. So which means all of our academic programs are only undergraduate. We don't have any master's program or doctoral programs. Which is really attractive for students, especially, we get to sell that all their tuition and money and revenue is going towards directly back to their undergraduate education, not to fund graduate programs. But we are located in the exact center of the state of Louisiana, making us pretty accessible to anybody, anywhere, in any corner of the state. We are one of Louisiana's fastest growing institutions. We have had continuous enrollment growth year after year after year. We're launching some new programs, got some new things that are getting started on campus. We just launched professional aviation, which is really exciting. Students are coming in to learn how to be private pilots, and they earn their private license with us here on campus. So we got a lot of good stuff happening right now. It's a fun place to be for sure.
Oh, awesome. Are you from the Alexandria area, Louisiana area? Where are you from? How'd you get to LSU-A?
Yeah, so I'm from Louisiana, originally born and raised, from Concordia Parish originally. So right on that Mississippi border. So I tell people I'm a Mississippi Louisianian. Most of my time was spent over in Natchez, Mississippi, but I grew up in Louisiana, went to high school in Louisiana. And then when time came for me to start looking at colleges, looked at some different options and kind of toured LSU-A on a whim. Didn't really look at a possibility of coming here, and came and did a campus tour Columbus Day weekend, my senior year of high school, and there was something different about it, and fell in love with the campus, and the rest is history.
Awesome. So you're an alum of LSU-A?
I am, that's right.
Awesome. How has it changed since you graduated?
It's a whole different place. I tell people all the time, especially friends that I graduated with, that know I still work here and have made my home here. I'm always telling them it's a whole different campus. You need to come back and look, even from 5 years ago. And I made my 9-year anniversary working here this past Sunday, so yesterday.
Congrats.
Thanks. And just in those years, we've really reshaped the campus, not just what it looks like on an academic field, but a physical look as well. We've really enhanced the look of campus.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm an alum of the University of New Orleans, and every time I go back, I'm like, man, they've really done a lot to beautify the campus and make it look great, and add a bunch of amenities, and also just adding different programs for students. So that's great to see. Like, you're a graduate, you're an alum, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna continue to give back to this community. Now, I know everybody finds their way into education differently. Some of us start in a different field and then come to education. Some of us start in education from the jump. Talk to me a little bit about your journey in education. How did you, what's your journey been like in education?
Yeah. So it's funny, no one ever actually plans to end up in higher ed. We just all end up here, right? but yeah, so mine is kind of that same story. Like I said, I'm an alumni of LSUA. I graduated my undergrads in psychology,
Mm,
and that's the direction I thought I was going with my life. I was wanting to do clinical psychology, wanting to go into counseling, and going into my senior year, I was looking at practicums and internships. I was talking with my advisor and major professor, and she said, "Have you considered educational psychology?" And I was like, "Nah, that's not for me. I don't want to work in K-12. This is what I want to do. I've already taken all these classes. Like this is the direction I'm going." She goes, "Well, why don't you just consider it? Why don't you look at an educational psychology?" She clearly saw something that
mhm,
I was ignoring. And I said, "Okay." She said, "Look, if it doesn't work out, I'll do an independent study with you, so it doesn't put you behind." I said, "Okay." And I said, "But really, I don't want to work in K-12." And she said, "Well, what about higher ed?"
mm,
And did an internship in the chancellor's office and fell in love with a side of higher ed that I didn't even know existed.
mhm,
I got to see the business side of education, and using my psychology training in an educational business setting paired perfectly, and it made perfect sense. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I go back to her and I was like, "Okay, you're right. Now what do I have to do to get here?" Um, so yeah, I graduated. A couple weeks later, we were starting up a new office on campus, the office of, well, the Center for Academic Success is what they were doing. And my advisor, major professor, was taking over that center. And they called up and she said, "I want you to come alongside me." So I interviewed
mhm,
for a job and she said, "All right, let's do this." The university's QEP was up for, the university was going up for reaffirmation of accreditation. The university's QEP was to create a first year experience program.
mm,
And I got to work through that whole process through a SACS reaffirmation of accreditation process and a QEP process, and building that and writing that. And then um, went on, did my master's from LSU, worked full time and going to school full time, got my master's in higher ed administration, knowing that this was the direction I wanted to go.
mhm,
And then a few years into that, um, my boss, my mentor, took another leadership role on campus, and the directorship of the office opened up. We did a rebrand, created the Office of First Year Experience, and the programs that we offer. And I'm blessed enough to be able to lead that program in that office here on our campus now.
Wow, that's amazing. That's why your network is so important. Keeping an open mind, because
Yeah.
my journey it was a little bit similar, especially in terms of pursuing grad school. It wasn't something I was necessarily thinking of, but one of my mentors, one of my supervisors, when I was an orientation leader at UNO, was like, "Hey, UNO is starting up their Masters in Higher Ed program. You should think about it." And then from there, I was like, I love it, right? Although I straddle the 9-12 higher ed
Mhm.
realm, I can definitely understand. Like I said, once you find that niche, once you find what your passion point is in education, that's exactly where that's the sweet spot. That's the
Yeah.
sweet spot.
I
Um,
always tell people, like, when you know, and I definitely
right,
knew.
right, right. Now you say y'all underwent a rebrand, and also you talked about like the SACS process. I'm actually curious because I've only heard. I know it's like very tedious, a lot involved. So can you talk about that process of both like going through the SACS accreditation and the rebrand? How did your office like work through those things?
Yeah, so to kind of, it's a big topic to kind of narrow it down. It's, I guess, as best I can.
Mhm,
Um, so the SACS process, every 10 years, universities have to go through a reaffirmation of accreditation, right? And part of that is they have to develop what's called a quality enhancement plan, or a
mhm,
QEP. So it's an institution-wide, institution-supported, student, university-driven program, essentially, that says, what are we doing to stay relevant and stay emerging in what we're doing, not just being stagnant in higher ed, right? Um, so the groundwork was laid before I came into the program, whenever they worked to establish that we're going to do a QEP that's create a first year experience program. So it was, at the time, it was housed in the Center for Academic Success. And that had a lot of different pieces. We managed a campus tutoring schedules and things like that as well. Um, but as the program grew, We started with a small cohort of like 100, and then we continued to grow to accommodate most of our freshman class.
Wow.
So our program really kind of quintupled in size in just a few short years. We knew we needed to kind of rebrand, so that's when we shifted, and kind of staying on with national trends. It's common for universities to have an office of first year experience that houses these things, and a lot of time their first year experience or freshman seminar program, it's kind of split 50-50 on, is it in academic affairs, is it in student affairs? The good news is I've worked in both. So my office is kind of a hybrid of both of those. So we serve as the academic home for our freshman seminar and academic leadership, which I'll talk a little bit more about too. And as well as those freshman programming things that are more on the student affairs side of the house. So it's kind of a hybrid of both of those things, but we really wanted to be clear of what our mission was, and it was to serve those first generation students, those first year students, and turn weird, scared, awkward freshmen into confident sophomores.
Exactly. And you actually, it's like you were thinking of my next question for you. Knowing that like your office is tasked with helping that transition not only to be smooth, but also preparing them for the next 3 years, 3-4 years, however long their degree plan is. Kind of talk about what are some of either the key strategies your office uses, and then also from your director role, what are some things you think about when you want to set your team up so that you can set these first year students up for success?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do every year is I look at emerging trends, right? We've got to stay relevant. Higher ed is a landscape that's changing every day, but so is our student population. There is not an incoming freshman class that is like the one before it. And we also run new student orientation out of our office as well. So that really helps us get a realistic pulse of what is this incoming freshman class like? And with every new student orientation, we learn something new and a little more. What are they going through? What do they want? What resonates with them? How do they relate to the material? How are they retaining information? And that allows us, we learn that in the weeks leading up to a fall semester, that allows us to then plan our fall programming if we have to pivot a little bit, or if we have to completely go back to the whiteboard and say, okay, no, we're starting something over. If this is what our students, if this is how our students are, this is how we need to reach them. And we all put our heads together. Thankfully, I work with a great division of colleagues that are all about student success. So they work well and pivot easily and help deliver a good product.
I didn't think of, like you said, when you get the vibe, when you get the personality that freshman class, you might have to adjust things a little. You might have to adjust things a lot. Is that the most challenging part of your role, or is there another?
Absolutely. Staying relevant is I was actually talking to a friend not long ago. My job was easy when I first started. I was fresh out of college. I was fun and cool and trendy, and I knew all the things and knew the music. And now you think, oh, it's only a decade later, but a person changes a lot. 10 years from now, and it's hard to stay up and knowing just what students are listening to, what they think is funny, how they take in information. That's definitely by far the most challenging part. Thankfully, I have a good team. I have a young team that knows what's going on and will tell me when something isn't quite as cool as it used to be, or something I thought worked. For example, one of the things that we do in our freshman seminar, students made a commercial assignment using campus resources. Well, at the time, YouTube videos were a big thing. Remember, everyone was on YouTube, and you followed all these YouTubers, and 20-30-minute videos were nothing out of the norm. And since then, TikTok has taken over, and now it's 20-30-second videos to grab their attention. That's what so that just things like that we've had to transition just to stay relevant. Otherwise, the information you have is dated very quickly.
Wow, yeah, that's a great example of shifting with the times, and I'm sure students find that more engaging, more applicable. Absolutely. For sure. I'm thinking about, just in terms of like you said, you manage the first year seminar course. Y'all do orientation. There's a number of different programs that you manage. How do you kind of, as a director, keep all that in front of you and make sure that you can kind of hit your end of year goals in each area? Because I can imagine, like you said, your job started off a lot easier, maybe not having as much food
Sure.
on your plate, and not only is there a lot more, it shifts throughout the year. So yeah, how do you manage how do you balance all the hats, all the programs?
Sure. Well, first, it's not the Ethan show. It is certainly a team of people, and I could not do my job, and our office could not be successful without the hard work of my team and my colleagues. It is really a collaborative effort. It's just a title, and while I'm very thankful for that, and I'm thankful to lead a great team, they are the ones in the trenches, and they are the workers. I've got a pretty large student staff that they are really the ones that I lean on heavily. They are the movers and shakers on campus. They are our leaders on campus. And they're the ones that are going to kind of give me the direction. Okay, this is how we need to move. This is the direction we need to go. These are topics that are more relevant now versus others that I thought were. And they're going to let me know. And they're quick to share their opinion and say, hey, this is what we need to be focusing on. And I'm going to trust their judgment on that. Staff in the office, same thing. They are working. One of our positions in the office, she is actually working in our office, and several times a week, she is out in the high schools, in the community, going in. So she's getting before they even graduate high school, we're capturing those students and working with those students to help ease that transition from high school to college, and collecting information there. My colleagues across campus in the division, new student orientation is one of those things that it's a big machine, right? Kind of every office has a piece of that. And we all have to communicate. We all have to talk. And that's, gosh, just so important for us to have a successful program, and for our programming to be what our students need to really make sure we meet the needs of our students.
Wow. I was a student leader. I was involved a ton on campus as well. And I really do remember, actually, Christy Heaton, she used to be the director of orientation at UNO. I can just remember how much she empowered us, how much she really helped us to grow as professionals. And so you just spoke to your student staff is both large, and you trust them with essentially the direction of a certain amount of the programming. How do you both identify student leaders that can handle that amount of ownership and autonomy, and at the same time, how do you develop them?
Sure. So our student leader staff are the university's ambassadors. So it's a specialized program. It's an elite program of students. They go through a pretty rigorous interview process. And then the biggest part of development is our meetings every week. So we meet every Friday at 4:30, which means it's after hours, business is over, the weekend's getting started. So if these students are meeting on Fridays at 4:30 for their weekend, they mean business. And they really are the best of the best. I actually presented to our senior leadership this morning, just on some annual stats from the last year and the work that they've done. And gosh, I'm so proud of them. But it really, that's the kind of student we have. We meet every week, and we're learning everything there is to know. So their drive, their want to know, their want to learn, that's all self-generated, right? My job is just to help champion them to be the best that they can be. They've got it in them already. They're natural leaders. My job is just to help get them there. They don't need me to lead, right? They don't need me to do that for them. My job is just to help them along the way. And that makes my job easier, right? I knew, because I was in that same role. I don't like being micromanaged. Don't tell me what to do and how to do it. Say what you need and let me deliver a product. And I've learned that if I give that same type of responsibility, not only do they learn, do they have that kind of initiative that they're going to need to take in the real world, but they're developing programming and then presenting it as, hey, this is what we could use, not just as an assignment. This is what we're using in our freshman programming, in our freshman orientations, that's going to shape the next generation of students on our campus. There's a responsibility and an accountability that comes with that. That's how you grow a leader. Like they're doing all the heavy lifting. My job is just to guide them to get there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, because I'm imagining being a student leader in your program and how much that's also building up my confidence, building up my independence. And you and I know, when you get into that professional world, when you get your first professional job, how important that is to have that level of independence and independent thought, so that you can't take something that's an idea and run with it. Because you're right, nobody likes to be micromanaged. Nobody ever likes to be micromanaged. So giving your students an opportunity to learn and grow and still push them and still develop them. Because you and I know this, educators and leaders watching this, y'all know this, students and staff will rise to the bar that we set out in front of them. It's like, let's be clear, let's have the clarity, and then allow people to get there, allow them to be them.
Sure. And when the time comes for direction and correction, it's received a lot better. Right?
Yeah, you can say that again. You can say that again. Right. That doesn't remove having to give constructive feedback when it's warranted. But you're right. That environment fosters receiving that feedback a lot better, right? Sure. A lot better. And you talked earlier a lot about collaboration. It's not just your office, it's not just you. Talk about, how do you foster that spirit of collaboration? What are the moves you make? What are maybe the offices that really help new student orientation, or just your office to really thrive at the beginning and throughout the year?
Yeah, so I work heavily with our Office of Admissions. As soon as students are admitted, I get a list of students. Say, all right, they've been admitted, the hard stuff is being done, then they're turned over to our office and the Office of Advising, and we're going to be in contact with those students as they prepare to begin their first semester. So I have to work very closely with them. I work closely with our Office of Advising that are working with these students to get them schedules and all of that stuff. It really is, because freshmen really touch every office on campus. We have to maintain a relationship with every office on campus, not just for orientation's sake, but on our freshman seminar in the first year experience program. We're working with our career center starting their freshman year. Students know what they want to do. They're going to college for a reason, right? They know what they want to do. Our job is to tell them how to get there. Let's show you how. So we're working with our career center their freshman year. We work closely with them. Our library and resources on campus that I could teach them about information literacy all day long, but it needs to come from the experts. So not only does it get them in our library and with the people that are passionate about this subject and teaching them, it engages them with the campus in a different way, but then they have hands-on time with this resource on campus rather than just sitting in the classroom and learning about it, right? And that's true for most of our offices across campus. We are pretty heavily involved. If you're an expert in the field, you can teach it better than I can, or than my faculty can, you know? So we are really depending on our campus partners. And the good thing, LSU is a small university, but the story is the same everywhere. We all get student success, right? We all want our students to be successful. And we all know that we can have a part in that. So whenever we say, hey, here's an opportunity to do something about it, they jump at it. It's like, hey, students are lacking in this area. Let me develop something. Let me teach it as part of a first year experience program. Or, hey, we struggled with this last year. I'm seeing this trend or seeing this change in our freshman class. Let's address it this way. Hey, let's reach out to this office. They've developed a great program to help do that. Whether that be from on the academic side of the house with tutoring and study skills, or maybe on the student affairs side of the house. Maybe students are struggling with mental health or time management or managing their finances. We've got departments and programs that are experts in that and have programming for those things. Let's collaborate together and develop a strong first year experience program that's got all of our best, and then we present our best to our students.
Wow. So what I heard was you leverage the content expertise of other areas to both make your programming better and also like expose freshmen to all that the university has to offer. And the other thing I thought that I think is often under, like isn't given enough light, is the people that you're collaborating with also have the mindset of we truly care about student success. If there's something that's missing and that's not there, let's create something. Let's
Right.
figure out how to fill this gap. Let's work
Right.
together to do that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
And the
awesome.
benefit of having these touch points for our freshman students is that if we get them involved, not just teach them about these campus resources, if they develop a relationship with these campus resources, when they move out of my office and become sophomores and juniors and seniors, they've already had exposure and worked with these offices and know, hey, this is where I can go when I need this assistance. This is the kind of help that I know that I can get. Again, we can tell students what they need to do all day long, but unless a peer does it or unless they've experienced it themselves, that's going to go much further.
Oh, exactly. Because you don't want them to have the type of experience in their freshman year where they don't know how to navigate or access those resources. Right. It's like, hey, this stuff is here for you the next 3 years. Right. Utilize it. Now, I also want to kind of go back to, of course, there's going to be teammates who have the same mindset as you. There's going to be teammates who want to contribute, but I know there will also be times where collaboration isn't great. You don't necessarily have to name the office or the role, but can you kind of speak to when you're not on the same page with another office or another staff member? How do you work through that conflict to get on the same page to ultimately improve student outcomes?
Right. So ultimately, our goal is for our students to be successful, right? And whether it's a personality issue or maybe that office is just too busy, maybe they've got a lot of stuff going on right now and they're not able to maybe support our programming the way that we'd like them to or need them to. That's okay. We've got the people and personnel in place within our team that are able to help kind of fill in those gaps. We know the information, even if it's, hey, if you can't do this or if you don't want to do this, can we at least sit down and have a conversation, and can you pass on that information so that we can still present that to our students? The last thing we want is for our students to be left with a void. So we're going to fill that however it takes. We'd love for you to be a part of our programming, but if it's not for you, that's okay too. We don't want you to be miserable. But let us have that information so that we can keep moving forward and deliver a good product for our students.
Gotcha. So y'all are still, there's some form of collaboration where I was like, hey, let me figure out what's maybe either most accommodating, or let me meet this person or this office where they are. We can still get the information we need to improve and provide the programming we want without asking more of this office or more than they're willing to give. That's a great middle ground. Great middle ground. I thought of one other question before my final question for you. I think this podcast is also a professional development of sorts. And so I'm always interested to see, how do you grow yourself, or what would be your advice for directors of first year experience for them to really, because you've been in the game 9 years. So what would be your advice for if your first year director or your director that's in the first 3 years, about how they can grow themselves and really improve their programming?
2 pieces of advice. 1, you're going to be frustrated. Get used to it. The second one, never stop learning. Every day comes with lessons to be learned. I have a notebook stuck in a drawer, and every now and then I'll jot down lessons learned working in higher education. Sometimes I'll share those on Facebook. Some of them are just for my eyes. Some of them are funny just for me to remember. But there's always lessons to be learned every day. Never stop learning. You're going to be frustrated. Look for those opportunities to network and to talk to those people that have been there and done that, right? They're experts. Learn from their mistakes, learn from their triumphs. Look for opportunities to join national organizations and attend national conferences and learn from different institutions outside of your context and your environment. That's helped develop me so much as a professional, is going to these regional and national conferences and talking to other universities and experts in their field that have worked in first year experience many more years than I have. And to be able to just sit down and pick their brain and over lunch and say, hey, I just want to run some stuff by you. Can we talk through this and just listen and learn from what they have to say and how they can contribute and develop you as a professional? We're young enough to think we have all the answers, right? But be old enough to know when it's time to shut up and listen. And that's something that we have to be reminded of. And I remind myself of that daily. I don't know everything. I've got a great system here at LSUA, and I've got something I'm really proud of and how it's run, but it's not the end all.
Mm.
There's still things that I can do differently and better, and be open to criticism and changing with the times and what that looks like. And sometimes that comes in the form of sitting down with someone else that's an expert and hearing their feedback and saying, okay, it's time to make a change. And being frustrated through that, but still learning through that.
Right. You will be surprised how much you can learn in a 15 or 20-minute convo with someone. I know sometimes at these conferences, you're the only person from your team or the only person from your school. Really use that as an opportunity to build a network, connect with people, because there's plenty of people like yourself too, Ethan, that want to help newbies in the field, but also you're never too old to learn from anybody at any stage of the game. So thank you for that advice. Here's the question I always end every podcast with. I want you to pretend that I gave you a magic wand and you could make any change in education that you would like, but that change would result in the most underserved students being the most successful. What change or changes would you make?
So the answer I'm going to give you is less practical and more philosophical.
Yeah, go for it.
If I had a magic wand and could wave it over higher ed and change anything, it would first be a heart change. I think we are lacking in compassion on so many different levels and areas and people. We just need to love more, man. We need to love our students where they're at and all of their hurts and confusion and differences and all the things they're going through. We need to be more compassionate to meet our students. And I wish so often that, it's easy for us to get tied up in the business of higher ed, right? And meet these goals and deliver a good product and showcase them and publish and present and all of these things. But at the end of the day, these are students. They're human beings with lives and families and feelings. And man, I feel like so often that gets lost as things grow into the business of higher ed, that we lose that compassion, especially for our minority and marginalized students. That, and we can do so much better by being kind. And I honestly believe if we start with a heart change in our greater population, man, we're going to see mountains move there. So my magic wand would not necessarily be programming or pragmatic, but man, it would start changing hearts.
That would do so much. You're right. Sometimes we get so caught up in goals, enrollment, persistence. Those things are, of course, important, but ultimately it all comes back down to lives that we get to impact, lives that we get to engage with each and every day. And I appreciate you. If we had more people in education who truly cared deeply and just more kind, right? Like gave more grace, a little bit more grace. I know we would see leaders, staff persons, educators show up differently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethan. Look, I know when people watch this, they're probably going to want to reach out. They're probably going to want to learn all the great things that you're doing at LSUA, whether it's your social media, whether it's an email. What's the best way for them to reach out to you, pick your brain, get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm not going to promise I have all the answers, but I'm always happy to have a conversation with someone. Feel free to reach out to me. Reach me by email. It's my first initial last name. So Lipsey, ELIPSEY at lsua.edu. You can, if you're ever in Alexandria, stop by the office. I'd love to meet with you. Give me a phone call. You can call my office directly. It's 318-619-2974. And of course, I'm all over social media, so feel free to find me there as well.
Awesome. Look, next time I'm in Alexandria, I'm definitely gonna pop in and knock.
Absolutely, man. I'd love to sit down with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ethan. Thank you for those of you that are watching this. Great things happen at LSUA. Look, if nothing else, go into your job and just care a little bit more. Be a little bit more kind, and of course, always continue to learn. Thank you again, Ethan, and y'all, we will catch y'all on the other side of graduation. Have a good one.